today, May 13th, I'm preparing, I mentioned that I've been working on preparing the next 11 videos, and I mentioned that I listen to it again, and I process it again as I'm posting. So this one is chapter 45, episode 4, having to become empowered. And I'm listening to myself describe the 3 scenes. The house where there's a lot of movement, and it's like a gallery, and there's people coming in and out. And then the second scene where it looked worn down, and that the family was bothered when people would come in and they were in their undies. And then in the third scene, my brother is trying to rebuild the wall and put drywall, but there's maggots coming out. And I just made the connection right now. It's the 3 phases of my family. It's the 3 phases of my childhood. It's the first one, because I'm listening to them in progressive order and progression. So the video today, that's why the video today that came out, I talked about how, there's a lot of people coming in and out of my house when I was younger. And it almost felt like there was always something going on at our house. And I remember big events. And it made sense. Like my dad helped a lot of his sisters out a lot. Always helped them out, and so he was viewed in a very, like, on a pedestal. He's viewed that way by a lot of his siblings. And the way I'm describing the dream, it's a gallery. It looked very fancy. Like I can see that a lot of, even from my mom's side of the family, because my mom's side of the family is from a pueblo, like a small rural town in Mexico, and so when they would come over, I mean, even my cousins, they thought we lived like in a mansion, and it was just a regular home. But for them, based on how they were brought up, like, it was a lot more like, we lived in a beautiful, I love my homes. And so, they're small homes, but I loved them. And compared to other people, right, we were living the life. So that makes sense, that first phase. And then the second phase, it's not lively anymore, and everyone's bothered. And that was the phase in my family after people started leaving. The last people who left were my cousins. And then, so that's why. So during my parents' divorce and separation, and that whole time, I mean, it was a year, like a decade. Probably a decade, maybe. Maybe. 23, 33. Excuse me. It was over a decade that my parents kind of elongated drew out the separation into divorce, like formal divorce. Because my mom didn't believe in divorces at the very beginning, even though I was telling her, like, get a divorce because you don't know what my dad's going to do financially. He wasn't really good with money, and I mean, he did his best. Everyone did the best that they could. She didn't listen. I mean, there was so much tension, so much going on. I mean, you could feel that. I mean, it was like slicing. You could feel the tension. So it was never pleasant when they were in the same space. After my cousins left, that's when things started going downhill. That's when there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of issues. Did we move at that point? I think we moved. There was no one else in the home, so things got worse. And it was uncomfortable. And then I even remember at one point my dad wanted to bring more people in. My mom started bringing people in. Like, I had my aunt live with us, my mom's sister, and my mom had people living with us too. Like, I remember my uncles lived was for a time period. So it's like both my parents. It was both on my parents' part. The people would come and live, and who knows how that arrangement was. That was not for me to know. But I remember I had to have a serious conversation with the patriarch and the matriarch, and I mentioned it in the video. It just happened. My mom's older sister, right, married my dad's older brother. So right now I don't have any more grandparents. They're it. And so they have a depending, like, they're just very important in our family. And my dad came to me during the divorce, and he was just venting. And I remember during that time frame, I was upset at my mom because of how she was handling it. Not realizing she was getting triggered, but still, she wasn't aware of that. And so the word choices that she made impacted my brother. And it caused, and at that point, my brother was just starting to have a relationship with my dad again, and that ruined it. In terms of just how he perceived it, and he cut it off, all lines of communication with my dad. And I warned my dad. I told my dad, because I knew this was going to happen. And so before my dad even initiated the divorce, I said, and it wasn't even about the divorce, it was property stuff that my dad was fighting for or wanting to, and I told him, I said, I need you to know that if you choose to do this, this is what's going to happen. Like, I already see it happening. You're going to lose the relationship that you have with my brother. He's going to get triggered. Like, and he decided he didn't listen. Okay, right, his choice. And I told him, at the end of the day, it's your choice. But what ended up happening was that my mom has more connection to the hierarchy in our family. And they started treating my dad in a hurtful way. And I remember hearing my dad and feeling my dad's pain, and I was so upset because my dad doesn't have a lot of support, his support system. And I know he loves his brother very much. So I made the choice to go and speak to them, to the matriarch, and like I was like, let's have a powwow, because you are only getting one side of the story. So every time my mom would go to TJ and stay with them, she would share her side of the story, her truth, which is valid. However, they were basing their choices on one side of the story. So I had to go and remind them. I said, you need to be mindful that you are only receiving one side of the story. You don't see the whole thing. And I haven't spoken up, but I'm speaking up now because I'm seeing the effects and the impact, and you're making choices without the complete truth, I said. So they were grateful that I came. And I realized at that point that they had no idea what had happened after my cousins left. They're like, what happened? Everything was fine. We don't understand the breakdown of your family. So I shared what I knew. I said, this is just my perspective, what I know, and what I suspect happened based on the information that I have from both sides, right? I was always in the middle. And they realized after that, they're like, wow, like, we feel really bad. So that after that, they wanted to reach out to my dad, but my dad was so hurt that he was kind of like, I don't know. I think now they're patching it up, but just thinking about all of those pieces and then hearing myself describe those three scenarios, when it was very likely, when it started breaking down and people were bothered by it. I remember being bothered by being home. I don't want to be home. A lot of us didn't want to be home. I think my sister had to be home because she didn't have the means to cope any other way, so she got the brunt of it. But my brother and I would stay away from home as possible. Like, we used school and work, and that's why I worked like so many different part-time jobs. I was never home, only to sleep. And then the last one was the rebuilding, trying to rebuild. And I mentioned that my brother took a big lead in the providing a roof over our heads. I mean, for me, it was only for a year because then I got married. But his role was big with my sister and my mom. But he was putting up the drywall and maggots were coming out. So he's trying to cover up the damage when it goes beyond the wall, right? And that makes sense now that I'm hearing the storyline, like, you know, because when I record, I just record in that moment. And I've mentioned before that I forget. Sometimes I forget when I record. I have to go back. So it helps me to see the progression as I'm preparing these videos for that chapter. And like I mentioned before, sometimes I get more puzzle pieces in my time from that tie into my past timeline that continues to just help me put the puzzle pieces together. So that's what I realized. And then the video that I posted today, I'm talking about my cousin, the stories that I'm sharing, and how my storytelling of our truth with my aunt and my uncle helped them see the situation from a different perspective, because they were really only getting one side. Every time my mom would visit, often, more often than my dad, so she would go and they would go at it, you know, because they're also very conservative, so they would get on my mom's case. You need to go back with your husband, you know, and my mom's like, hell, you know, like, which is fine. Like, she's entitled to live her life the way she wants to. But again, those religious constructs that even she, right, was exposed to, and, you know, and she's trying to impose that on me. Find yourself a good man who brings you back down to earth. I'm like, oh, you fucking man. to bring me back down to earth. I'm exactly where I need to be. Right? Feeling more empowered every day with every experience that I overcome. And just that realization, I don't think she knows that she's caught up in that cycle too. As much as she tried to get out of it for herself, that she's doing the same thing to us when we're just wanting to fly. That's what she told me once. And she felt like her wings were cut. And now that I have my wings, she's afraid that I have my wings back. She's forgotten. She's forgotten. Okay. 353 balance. I wanted to record on that because of that realization of the 3 scenes and the 3 phases in my family. I don't think I made that connection before, so before I forget, because I'm going to start working a little bit. So that's all. Hi, my name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learn to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us, in whatever way we believe we are embracing living our truth. This just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience, and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.